It's May 26, 2016. I'm Sue Cohen with the San Marcos Heritage Association, and we have the pleasure of visiting with Bonnie Pecina today, who was born in San Marcos and has lived here all of her life. Bonnie, why don't you start out by telling us a little bit about the early years, like where you were born, where your family lived, that kind of thing.
Well, I was born and raised here in San Marcos, and I was raised at 729 Mackey Street, which is, back then, the Carston's restaurant used to be just up the hill. And I attended Southside School, which is on Mackey Street as well, Mackey and Lee. So that's where I went to school.
For how many grades?
For 5 grades.
Okay.
And I walked to school because I was like a block from the school. I had 2 brothers. I'm a twin, so my twin brother was not raised with me, but we did get to see each other.
Mm-hmm.
He went to up the hill. He used to live on Hutchinson, right at the end of Hutchinson. So he went to a different school than I did. My older brother, he was in the service. So when my mother was raising me, she had a lot of trouble knowing that my brother was. It was during World War II. So when I came into her life, she totally forgot about him. Not really.
What year were you born?
I was born 1942. So my brother it was during the war, and I took a lot of space in her life to where she didn't concentrate on him every day because she would always worry about that. So I was very blessed. My mom's name was Paula Guardiola Romero. And I had 2 sisters as well, Angelita Rodriguez and Carolina Rivas.
And your mom came from?
My mom came from Mexico. I don't know the exact year that she did, but I was raised in a single parent home. My mom.
What was the primary language in the home?
Spanish.
Okay. And when you went to school, when did you learn English?
When I went to school, I had a hard time because I got in trouble several times for speaking Spanish. But then that's all I knew. My mom didn't speak English, so it was one of those transitions that
the schools didn't allow you to speak Spanish at all at school.
Right.
That was quite an adjustment.
It was an adjustment, yes. So even though my mom didn't have any type of schooling, she made sure that I went to school every single day. She said, if I didn't learn the English language, I want you to learn all you can and do your best. And I was very, very blessed to be raised by the mother that raised me.
And what did she do for a living?
She worked at the academy, which was on Academy Street at that time. And she was a hard worker. She walked from where we lived up the hill every day, rain or shine.
To work.
In the summertime, I would work with her. But I got the easy job. She was doing the pressing, and I was doing the labeling, just making sure the labels were on the shirts and that type of thing. She even bought me I was one of the first girls that had a car. I actually had a car when I was in high school through her hard work.
Wow. What kind of car was it?
It was a 51 Ford. And I took like 5 girls to school, and they would pay me $1 a week to put gas. And even though they paid me, we still ran out of gas sometimes.
So you went to high school on Highway 1. You went to 1st through 5th grade at the old Tware on McGee Street.
Yes.
And then where did you go to junior high?
I went to Travis, which was junior high.
Oh, okay.
And we'd walk. Sometimes we'd walk, and then we'd come down to the corner of LBJ and remember what the name of that. There was a big hot dog stand there, and we'd all meet there. All the girls would meet there. We thought it was so much fun walking for that distance, all that distance.
There wasn't
But
another option. I guess they didn't have buses back then.
there was a bus, but we enjoyed walking. And then that's another thing. My mom made sure that I had bus money all the time. But we decided we wanted to walk. Then I went to Lamar School
For
when
middle
I was
school?
in middle school. I remember going to Lamar.
High school.
Oh, high
It was
school.
a high school at one time, yes. And then we went on. The high school over on 123 was, I think we were the second class that graduated from there. It was brand new.
So you went to a couple years of high school at the
At
old
the-
location
yes.
on Hutchison Street,
On Hutchison.
and then you were to the brand new school,
Yes.
which is now old.
Good night. Good night, junior high now.
And what year did you graduate?
I graduated in 62, May 25th, 1962.
What was it like in the 1962 at the high school? What kind of things were you involved in? And
I was in choir, and I will never forget Mr. Higgs, Willie Higgs. When I was in that class, we would, would be doing what we were supposed to singing, and one time I crossed my legs, and I didn't notice. He noticed, and he said, "Everybody quiet. We'll wait till Miss Romero decides to unfold her leg." I was so embarrassed, but it taught me something.
what did it teach you?
That we don't, because we're singing, we don't cross our
your
legs. Another person that I remember in high school was Mr. Yoakum,
Thomas Yoakum.
Thomas Yoakum. And it always amazed me that wherever he saw me, he knew me by name. And he always talked about Bigfoot Wallace. It was something that, because he taught history,
Okay.
so that was history to him, and so everybody knew about Bigfoot. I was in an art class. I remember some of the teachers that Mr. Bartholomew. Do you remember Mr. Bartholomew?
No. Tell me about him.
Oh, he was a hard teacher. He had a cane,
Uh-oh.
but he was just he was a big, tall man, and everybody was afraid of him. I guess because of his cane, but he was really a really nice man.
And how many kids were in your graduating class? Do you remember roughly?
I want to say that there was like 262, and we didn't graduate from the our high school because the first graduating class there was no air conditioning. The school was built without air conditioning, so it was so hot during that first graduation that they found a place, the First Baptist Church here in Hutchinson, and that's where I graduated from.
They built a brand new school and didn't put air
Didn't put
conditioning?
air conditioning in it.
So-
I remember coming in from lunch, and the windows were open, and my Mrs. Ray, forgot her first name. Mrs. Ray was my homeroom teacher, and some of the kids were hanging out and out the window, and I was walking. Hey, here she comes! She's late or what? And I said, it's so funny that there was no air conditioning.
Wow. Well, do you still stay in touch with some friends from high school or folks?
Yes, some of my friends that I stay in touch with was Alice Contreras Pierce. Our mothers were good friends. My mom and their mom were good friends, and she had a sister, and so we would always be together. We would go to record hops over at the National Guard over here at
What's a
City Park.
record hop?
Record hop is a dance. They held dances,
Uh-huh.
teen dances.
And they played records and you danced.
Yes.
And you wore dresses and bobby sock. What'd you
Yes.
wear? What was the clothes like? What clothes?
I was really skinny. I had to wear a lot of petticoats, and my skirts were full, and loafers and socks were what I wore all the time.
And would y'all walk to those dances, or did you have your car by
I
then?
had my car.
So you took a whole carload.
Yes.
What other things did y'all do for fun in high school?
We'd go to the movies a lot. But one thing for sure was if I didn't go to church on Sunday, I would not go to the movies. So I was in church every Sunday.
What church did you go to?
I was raised at the First Mexican Baptist Church on Guadalupe.
Okay.
So, and my mother would tell me, just remember you can go with your friends after we come home and eat, but those dishes have to be washed before you leave. And don't think that because your friends come in, you'll be able to leave without doing your chore. So I always knew that. It took a little while, but that's, you know, back then you did what you were told.
Right.
So
we had that same rule in our house. If you didn't feel good, didn't go to church, you didn't go anywhere else.
And that's right.
Now, your house growing up, did y'all have air conditioning, telephone? Do you remember when you got the first television and phone and stuff?
When I got married.
Ah.
I didn't have a phone. I had another of my friends was Alice Costilla and Salvador Costilla. They had that little tortilla factory on LBJ. There was Ramos Bakery, and next door was Costilla Tortillas. And Alice lived there, and of course it was a business, so she had a phone. So whenever I got a phone call, she would go and get me. So I never knew what I was missing. You know, I didn't have a phone. I didn't have a TV. I got a TV when I got married, and a phone, of course.
And what year was that?
I got married in 1964, February 15th, 1964.
2 years after you graduated.
2 years after. My husband passed away a year ago, in February. We were married for 51 years.
Wow. Where was he? What was his name and where was he from?
Robert Pecina, and he was from San Marcos. He was born and raised here. He was raised on Hutchinson, you know, where that where Parks and Recreation building is on Hopkins at the corner. Well, you know that house that they rent out for parties, or there's a house and you can have parties and gatherings.
The Charles S. Cock House?
Yes. No, not across the street.
Not across the street.
But right.
The fish hatchery.
Yes.
He was raised in the fish hatchery?
No, he was raised right next to it. So was my brother. My brother was raised his backyard was a river.
So they swam and fished.
And that was their pastime, yes. My husband, he said, I grew up in the river. So did my brother. And my brother came from, he was raised as a single child, but he was from a family, there was 9 brothers and 3 sisters. And they were raised part of the time here, but then they left to Ohio, and that's where they were raised. But they would come and see him.
So both you and your brother were adopted by other families?
Yes, and so was my husband.
Ah, okay.
Yes.
And how did you meet your husband?
Well, I met him, I would hear his name all the time, then I saw him and I said, oh, I like him. But I met him when he first talked to me, it was in Lockhart. We would go to dances in Lockhart, me and my friends. They used to have this dances, they were called tardeadas. And tardeadas means like they were held in the afternoon. And we'd go over there, and I remember him coming to me one day, and he said, would you like to dance? But I didn't know how to dance, so I said, well, I don't know how to dance. I said, see all those girls right there? They all want to dance. So ask one of them to dance. And he said, but no, but I won't.
He wanted to dance with you?
Yes, but one time I did get the nerve to go to the middle of the floor, and I was stiff. I couldn't move.
What was the dancing like back in the 60s? Was it slow dance? What kind of music and stuff?
It was slow. It was, of course, that was Spanish music, but it was
okay,
slow
like
dance.
conjunto and stuff like that?
Yes. Conjunto, yes, like, I remember Alfonso Ramos, Isidro Lopez, the orchestra was popular at that time. And so that's where we met. And then,
And he was a couple years older than you?
yes. And he went to school in the Catholic school because he
Oh.
grew up over here. He went to school at Evans. They used to have classes up the hill. And then he went to school to the Catholic. My brother was raised at the Catholic school also.
So they didn't graduate from San Marcos High School. They graduated from the Catholic school?
No, my husband did not graduate. His mother got sick, and he
Okay.
quit school to take care of her.
And
My
what-
brother went to the service. When we were in high school, we were at Lamar. During that time, he went to the Vietnam War.
Ooh.
So,
What's your brother's name?
Ray Gonzalez.
And did he live in San Marcos all these years, or did he come back after the Vietnam War?
Yes, he came back, and then he moved to Austin, and that's where he got married and raised a family. He also had 2 boys and 1 daughter, and I had 3 sons.
3 sons. And what kind of work did your husband do?
He worked with Ingram Ready Mix for
Okay.
years. He was a dispatcher there.
And where was your first house when y'all got married?
Well, we rented up the hill on Burleson
Uh-huh.
from Mrs. Maria Ruiz, and that's where we lived for a year or 2 with her. In fact, I got pregnant while I was there, and I remember walking down to Duquesne's,
Uh-huh.
and that one morning when I was having pains, and my husband said, well, maybe I shouldn't go work. But this lady, she had another family living downstairs with her. We lived upstairs. And he went and brought her up, and she said, what do you think, And she said, oh, no, just go on to work. So he did, and so this one lady that lived downstairs, she had a little...
It was an old house, like a 2-story house?
Yes. In fact, it's still standing there.
On Burleson Street?
On Burleson and Mary,
Yes.
right at the corner.
It's a white house, 2-story white house?
It's a white house, yes, but I don't know if it's got a red trim.
Oh, it's on the other side of Rancho 12.
It's on this side, Burleson and...
Burleson, but Burleson goes across to Mary Street, doesn't
Yes. It
Okay.
goes across like this.
It's up the street from that coffee shop, Joe on the Go.
Yes, that's something new.
All
so I
new.
don't know.
So anyway, go ahead.
But
Sorry.
anyway, there was a little boy that lived there, was like 4 years old, and so I brought him, and we walked down to Duquesne's, and I remember having pains on the way, well, no, we made it back, but as soon as he came in from work, he had to take me to the hospital. And I remember that the hospital was over here on, what's there now, the Uptown Apartments.
Off of I-35
Uh-huh.
and Thorpe Lane
Mhm,
area, that's where the
right.
hospital
That's
was.
where the hospital was.
So that's where your kids were born, in
Yes,
that hospital.
Yes.
Who was the doctor?
Dr. White was for one, and Dr. Elliott was for the other 2.
Because there weren't that many doctors back
No.
then.
So, yes.
And so did your kids end up moving away from San Marcos or
Uh,
living here?
The 3, one lives in Wimberley, and 2 live here. I have 3 sons, 6 grandsons, 2 great-grandsons, and I have 1 great-granddaughter.
Wow. Lots of boys.
I guess maybe because my husband had so many boys in the family. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let me think. Some other things now quinceañeras are real big in the Hispanic culture. Did they do quinceañeras? Did you back then when you were a little girl, or what kind of traditions and holidays and things when you were a little girl did they have?
I never participated in a quinceañera.
Because they're real big now.
Yes, well, when my boys were growing up, would you stand with me? One of the girls, the brides, the madrinas. I don't know.
Uh-huh.
And so I said, well, okay, but we had to rent a tuxedo, and they were real popular. And so they went to a lot of those quinceañeras.
But not so much when you were a little
Not
girl.
so much when I was a
What
little
kind of traditions were they when you were a little girl? Did you do tamale making at
Oh,
Christmas?
tamales was a yearly thing. It was every Christmas. There was tamales. Another thing, my mom had a huge garden. The whole neighborhood bought from her garden, but I had to be the one selling. She made tamales to sell. She made tortillas to sell. She made quesos.
What's it? Cheese?
Cheese, the white round
Uh-huh.
cheese. The vegetables. And I was okay there for a while. I went around the neighborhood. But then I got to a certain age and I was like, "God, that's embarrassing." My mom said, "Don't ever be embarrassed to work. Embarrassing is if you steal something, but not when you work for your money."
Your mother was an amazing, a single mother of 3 at a time when it's,
Yes. And
she
yet
worked her tail off to
And you know
support
what?
y'all and provide you a good life.
My mom was always ready to help somebody in need. And back then, the government, I guess, used to give commodities
Mm-hmm.
like cheese, and she would buy it from ladies that would sell it. And I would say, "Why do you want to buy that?" She says, "She needs soap to wash her dishes. She needs soap to wash her clothes, and so she needs somebody to help her." And let me tell you something. She would say, "I'm doing this. I'm planting the seeds so that one day somebody can help you." And Sue, I believe that wholeheartedly. I met you,
Right?
and you were a blessing.
Oh, well, your whole work for 26 years. Tell us a little bit about, you've worked in the helping profession and mentoring kids. You've been quite you've carried that into your adult life.
And I work with the elderly and disabled, and to me that I have a passion for that.
Tell us about your work.
We have an after-school program, and we've had it for a long time. And
San Marcos Housing Authority.
the San Marcos Housing Authority, and I was hired in November 1990. And I was, you know, Nina, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I worked with Nina before that. It was a
Drug-free San Marcos.
drug-free San Marcos, yeah. And I visited with families, and I saw Nina not too long ago, and I thanked her. I said, "Nina, thank you so much." I said, because she gave me a great recommendation. And she said, "Thank you, because it's because of your work that you're
Right.
still at the housing." I said, "But if you hadn't given me such a good recommendation, I wouldn't be there."
But you earned it.
But I love working with these kids and redirecting their behavior. Throughout these years, I've seen so much change in their behavior, in the lack of respect. They need somebody to believe in them. We have this young man that grew up there at CM Allen, and he was going through a difficult time, but he was a little boy, and I remember we used to go in at 9 o'clock in the morning, and then during the summer, when I came to work, he was sitting right there by the door waiting for me.
Oh.
That little boy, his name is Christopher Lopez, grew up, went to school, graduated from high school, got a scholarship, went to Michigan State, got hired by Teach for America. He keeps in touch with me every year that he comes to see his parents.
Really?
And you should see the amazing letters that he's written. This last postcard, he's in New York right now.
Wow.
I went to the front office and they said, "Bonnie, I think you have an admirer." I said, "What?" She said, "You've got a postcard." And I said, "From who?" And they said, "From Chris Lopez." I said, "Oh my God, that's Chris." And he told me that he's been so busy working, going to school. I think he's going for his PhD. Looking for volunteer opportunities. He said, "And you know what, Bonnie?" He said, "You came to mind because of your commitment to service. And I will never forget that you always told me to fight the good fight." And I'm like, "Oh, Chris, you know." So, I mean, that just, I have different stories. There's
He's one of many children you've. It's an after-school program for kids that live in the housing projects, and you teach them a lot of different skills
and to believe in themselves, because they can do it. Don't let nothing get in the way. There's always help. If you come to me with needing help in some area and I can't offer you that, I will find somebody who can. There was another young man that came in. He lived there at CM Allen. He had a sister, and his mom worked at the HEB in Kyle. But he was a smart student, because I like to go to the schools and find out how the kids are doing. So I knew he was a good student, but his mom came in one day and said, you know, I'm having a lot of problems with him. I don't know what's going on. His grades are not so good anymore. So I said, I'll talk to him. So every time he came in the building, I would say, come in here, close the door. I said, what's going on? Why? I said, because your mom came and talked to me and you're not doing as good as you were doing before. And I know you can do better. You know, if I didn't think that you could do better, I wouldn't be sitting with you here. But I'll go to the schools and I'll find out. Why are you following instead of being a leader? You're such a smart young man. You're not making good choices right now. But you're always my door's always open to you. Come in and tell me what's going on. And I will help you.
You've helped hundreds of kids in your 26-year career there, I bet.
And you know what? They moved from there, and one day he came in, and I was like, oh, I'm so glad to see you. And he said, Bonnie, you changed everything about me. And I'm like, what do you mean? So I sat him down on the computer, and he wrote a little paragraph saying, Bonnie, I remember you coming into the building and you pulling me into your office and fussing at me. You told me, when I was making bad choices, you told me that I could do better. And you were 100% right. You told me that I could lead and not follow, and you were right about that too. And guess what? He said, I'm making all A's and B's in my pre-AP classes, and I haven't gotten in trouble one single time this year. And I'm so glad. I just love to hear things like that. He said, you believed in me. I said, because you could do it. So things like that really make my job all the more worthwhile.
That's amazing. Are you ever going to retire?
Maybe soon. I don't want to because
you
my
love your
husband
work.
passed away too. This has helped me so much. Working with the elderly, you know what? You know, I have different activities at CM Allen, and I pass out flyers, I go talk to them. The day off, I go back and tell them, hey, the event is today, don't forget. And this one lady, she said, I knocked on the door, and she would always tell me she was coming, and she didn't come. So her son answered the door, and she said, I said, is your mom here? And he said, yeah. Mom, it's Bonnie. And she said, oh, that woman, she's so stubborn. And so she came to the door, and I said, Hola, is that a good thing or a bad thing? She said, that's a good thing, because otherwise I'd be in my room all day long.
Oh.
And I said, well, let me tell you something. I said, you're such an important part of this community, and this is why I want you to be coming to our event. And it's something that can help you. We have home health agencies coming in. You might need some of their services. Well, guess what? When I had an intern come in, one of the volunteers from the university, I had her do an interview with her. And she told her about me, how I was also persistent. And she said, but you guess what? One of the things that I regret the most is not having gone sooner. Because of going to those events, I got somebody, a home health person that comes in and takes my vitals and weighs me and tells me if I'm doing good, and just because I went to one of her events.
So you've been at the CM Allen homes for 26 years or through your whole career?
Well,
with Housing Authority.
We were at Springtown Villa for a little while, and then I was at CM Allen, but I would go out to Chapultepec, and then I would go out to Allen Woods, and then we had 3 different sites that I would go to.
What are some of the biggest changes that you've noticed over the years in San Marcos?
In San Marcos?
Mm-hmm.
The downtown, I don't like all that change. Oh, I worked at Gelman's department store downtown when I was in high school.
That was one of my questions.
I worked at Gelman's department store.
What did you do there?
I was a salesperson, yes, with Mr. Bob Balusic and Norma Balusic. Wonderful, wonderful persons. I remember can I go back to something?
Yes, yes.
I remember that my husband had a motorcycle.
Ooh.
And so when I worked there, sometimes I might be busy with the customers at the back with shoes, and the girls would hear that motorcycle, because it used to be, you could
Where
go around
was
the square.
Gelman's? Which side of the
Right
square?
there where Harper's is,
Oh, okay.
right there. And they would
And
say,
that was in the 60s?
that was in the 60s. And 59, 60.
When you were in high
61,
school?
Right. And they would say, oh, they used to call him Bobby, my husband. Bobby just went by. Did you hear the motorcycle?
So you had your eye on him when you were in high school?
Yeah, but I was shy. You know Jack Mudd?
Uh-huh.
I saw, he went to school with me. And Bruce Harper?
Oh, he did? He
Yes.
was in your graduate, y'all still?
No, they were, Bruce was ahead of me.
Do y'all have reunions?
Yes.
Do you
but
keep up with those folks?
Well, I haven't gone to many. Marilyn Turpin, Kay Posey.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, Jack saw me at HEB one time, and he says, Bonnie, are you still as shy as you used to be in high school? I said, no. In high school, I was, and
You were shy?
I was very shy. I wish I hadn't been, because I missed out on some things, because I was like, I don't want to join that, or I don't want to, you know?
Some people we've interviewed talk about how, was there prejudice between Hispanics and Anglos? Was that an issue growing up in San Marcos?
Not to me, because the ladies that, like Kay and Linda Mercer and Shirley Layton, and I didn't feel like I was, you know, rejected, or they were very, very friendly. So, and Bruce was in my Spanish class with Francis Espinosa.
And you were probably a lot better at Spanish than he was.
Yes, ma'am.
I can't see Bruce Harper speaking Spanish.
Oh my God, yes. Yes, we were in the same class. So,
So do you have memories of the church? Like you went to church, the Baptist church?
oh yes, it was so much fun. I used to love to go to Bible study, because we'd plan outings. We'd go to 5 Mile Dam and have just a cookout.
Mm-hmm.
That was fun to us.
It was a simpler time. Fun was simpler things
Yes.
back then.
Yes. My mom was kind of strict with me. I could not go to the out-of-town games
For the high
to
school?
the high school. She would say, well, you don't have to go to the game out of town. Just wait till they're here. And I know, but I did go sometime, though, and got in trouble.
And drove over there in spite of your mom telling you not to?
No, I'd ride the bus with the rest of the kids.
Oh, they took the
Everybody
bus.
wanted to go together, so.
So y'all played schools like Lockhart and Luling and
Seguin was our rival. The Matadors
it?
were, yes, they were.
who had the better team? San
We
Marcos had a good
We
team
did.
back
We
in
had
the
a good
60s,
way back
right?
then, yes. Yes. We'd go to school dances. That's another thing that we went to.
And had them at the school.
Yes.
Do you remember some big things big events that might have happened in San Marcos, like flooding or when they filmed movies here, or just something big that happened here, a natural disaster?
My mom's house was flooded in the 1970 flood. I was married already, and lived on Saltillo Street. And my husband.
She was still on McGee Street?
She was on Mackey.
Mackey.
McGee was the other street
Okay.
behind it. But I remember my husband coming in one morning, and he was all wet, and I was pregnant. I had my child. This was in May.
Mm-hmm.
That flood was in May as well. And I had my child in June. So anyway, my husband came in, and I said, what happened? Well, he swam from where the truck stop is right there and to my mom's house. My mom's house was right by that creek on Mackey Street, right across the street from the Chapultepec homes. And he said, oh, well, no, there was a lot of water. I guess if she had told me that He was thinking my mom was, her house was covered up to the roof. So he was, didn't know what was going on. He didn't know whether my mom was there or somebody had taken her out. And good thing they had taken her out. But he didn't tell me about it until later.
The house was underwater and he didn't know where she was.
Yes.
Where did they take her?
They took her to the church. Like I said, I was pregnant, and
well, there used to be a lot of floods back then before they built the dams that keep it from flooding as much now.
But that was the worst.
That was the worst
flood
one.
that I remember her getting help. They redid the house through the Red Cross and all of that, and then it was never the same anymore. Anyway, that was like I said in 1970.
How old was your mother when she passed away?
She was 71. Yes.
Wow. What other memories do you have, like, of how things were then and so different now? I mean, it was a different town. People
knew everybody. We all know. Everybody knew everybody in the neighborhood. There wasn't a stranger, there used to be a Arredondo's grocery right there on Guadalupe, where Frank's Automotive is.
Okay.
And right across the street there was another little grocery store, Diamond's Grocery.
Uh-huh.
It was owned by the Gonzalez family. And my mother would send me to, because my mother loved to cook. She would cook for quinceañeras, she would cook for gatherings, and she would say, I ran out of onion, go get me an onion at Redondo's. But I always had to have somebody go with me. So I'd go down across to Norma's house and to invite her. So I took a long time. So when I came back home, she said, do you know that I'm done cooking? I wanted the onion for today, not tomorrow. And I'm like, but Mom, I always got in trouble for that, for wanting to have somebody with me all the time.
And maybe you went over to her house and used the phone,
right.
too. Isn't that where the phone was?
At Alice's and
Yeah.
another friend. Oh, my mother used to make pan de huevo, pan de dulce. You know what that is?
Uh-huh.
She would go out and sell her bread.
Do you remember how much tamales used to sell for a dozen?
50 cents.
A dozen.
A dozen. 50 cents a dozen.
Wow.
So I wish I had learned a lot of what she...
So you didn't make tamales alongside with her?
I helped her do the spread the dough, but I wasn't good at it. But she said,
hard.
"You learn."
I went to a tamale making once, and I could hardly stand up. My back hurt 4 hours
It's
later.
a lot
It's
of
hard
work. My husband, we made tamales, me and him. He had some deer meat, venison,
Mm-hmm.
and he said, and we got together, and he said, you know what? I wouldn't sell this for $20 a dozen. It's a lot of work. And it is a lot of work. But it's too much, $12. Now they sell as much as $12 a dozen.
And they're not as good. I think that's when I first moved to San Marcos, the tamales. Oh my goodness.
Yes.
They're so good. Now it's hard to find good tamales around town. What other things have changed so much since you were growing up?
Well, we have tons of restaurants. So many restaurants. When we didn't even have a McDonald's when my boys were growing up.
And people didn't eat out back then.
Oh, no. Yeah, I know. We did. My mom cooked at home all the. And one thing also, she would always, anybody that came to visit, she'd start cooking. I mean, that was a.
Do you like to cook?
Not anymore. As soon as my boys left, I didn't cook. My husband was a good cook. So I used to cook. We didn't have a McDonald's here. We'd take them to Austin to a McDonald's, and that was a treat.
Mm-hmm. Going to Austin was a big deal.
Yes. That's where we'd go. We hardly ever went to San Antonio, but Austin was the place that we'd go to.
Have you ever been involved politically here in San Marcos, or?
No, not really.
Not in the politics?
Not into politics.
What other things are you involved in besides your work and your church?
Nothing much. I know I know Nova has, they invited me to this group that meets, that it's just ladies who've lost their spouse.
Nova Festerman?
Mm-hmm. And I've met with them at Garcia's to eat a couple of times, but because I get out at 6 o'clock and they meet around 5:15, 5:30, I can't go all the time. But she's also invited me to play dominoes.
Mm.
But I asked her, and she would call me, and I'd see her at church, and I said, well, what time do you all play to? Until what time? After dinner, and then you go and meet at one's house? And she said, oh, around 10:30 or 11. I said, oh, that is late. I'm not used to being out that late.
Wow, yeah. That is late. Those wild ladies playing dominoes, where do they play?
At whoever house they decide to play at.
So
But-
Nova Festerman goes to your church as well.
I go to her church.
What
yes.
church do you go to now?
To the First Baptist on McCarty.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Is the church you grew up in still there?
It is still there, but there's been so much change.
Uh-huh.
So I'm so blessed, lucky to know Nova. We see each other. We went to a women's retreat on April 23rd in Wimberley. And I got lucky because there was about 60 ladies there. But there were so many questions that were asked. And they said, Sue, if you like flowers, you go to that corner. If you like pets, you go to that corner. And so it just so happened that I liked something that she liked, and we wind up in the same table.
Oh,
And it
she's
was
a nice
Very
lady.
nice.
What are your general feelings about living in San Marcos all your life? Give me a summary of what it's been like for you.
The majority have been very peaceful, very friendly town. Not so much anymore. It's so big. It's gotten so big that we don't know a lot of the people around anymore. And really, we don't. That tradition we had was visit somebody. We would go visit a family that we knew. That doesn't happen anymore, and it's been a long time that it does not happen. Where I see some of those families are at HEB. I haven't seen you in a long time, we don't do that anymore. I just hope that I pray every night for the safety of my grandkids. It's so different. We didn't have police at the school when I was growing up, when I was in school. We didn't have to worry about bullying. Everybody got along. And it's different now. And I worry about it. I shouldn't.
You shouldn't. I mean, I don't know. Now they go to your grandchildren two of them live in San Marcos? Two of your sons?
Yes, and one in Wimberley. One of my grandsons just moved out of the dorm. He started last summer, Texas State.
Uh-huh.
And his brother, the youngest, is just graduating from high school and will start summer school at Texas State. One of my sons graduated when it was Southwest Texas State University.
Well, you have quite a lot to be proud of. All those sons and grandsons and the one great-granddaughter.
I know it. She's so tiny. We never thought there would be a girl in the family.
Well, thank you. Any closing thoughts, Bonnie, about...
Just that we have no choice but to let San Marcos grow and prosper. And one good thing is that we have so many students at the university. That means that more students are getting an education, and I'm glad for that. I'm seeing a lot of our kids that I've worked with go on to college, and that's so wonderful. Because when I talk to them, I tell them that is the only way for a better life for you. Because I talk to the kids. Can I tell you a little story?
Yes, please.
I talked to these two girls. One of them was always ready to do their homework. We feed the kids 4 days a week, so they come in and they eat, and then it's homework time. And then we're fortunate to get students from the university to come tutor and mentor the kids. Well, this one girl, she's ready to do her homework as soon as she's done eating. But the other one, her friend, they come in together, she's like, oh, I'm so tired. I said, girl, how old are you? Oh, I'm 10. I said, you're not tired. You need to do, well, come in the office. So I came and I said, you know what? I'm so proud of you, Milagros, that you are always ready to do your homework. That's great. That you ask for help when you need it. And you know, one day, you're gonna go on through high school, go on to college, get a good job, and I'll be sitting here, and I'll look out, and I see a red convertible Corvette. Guess who's driving it? Milagros. Juliet, on the other hand, you came in this morning and you asked for 50 cents because you had to take the bus, but you didn't have 50 cents. And that's the difference between getting an education and not getting it. And not doing your homework. And education makes a difference. So come on, girl, let's go do your homework.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you, Bonnie. We've enjoyed hearing your...
Well, thank you for having me. I hope I didn't bore you.
No.
Not at all. I had a question.
Okay, ask a question, yeah.
Other than going to the movies when you were,
Oh,
what else in downtown did y'all do?
we went to Gil's.
Oh, wait, look over here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
We went to Gil's Broiler. They had slot machines there, those machines. We'd love to come and play there all the time. We'd
What
go
else?
there. Go to Old Bossy and have ice cream. Go to Wallen's Creamery and have some floats. That was fun. That was part of our pastime. Get together, go for an ice cream at Old Bossy, go to Wallace Creamery, and have some ice cream. Go to the Palace Theater, to the Holiday Theater.
How many of you would go? How many girls?
About 3 girls and myself. We would be about 4. We were always in a group,
Riding in that 1951 Ford.
riding in a yes.
How'd you learn to drive? Who taught you how to drive?
One of my friends. And I remember going through down the back roads, no traffic whatsoever. But I remember coming downtown with my mother with me, and it was a
Because your
standard.
mother didn't drive.
No, it was a standard. So you know you
On
had
the
to
collar.
hold on, and so if it was uphill, your car started going back, and my mother said, "Don't let the car go back." I'm trying. And you know what? If there was a policeman behind me, and we were going up, I'd go all the way up to the Catholic church that was up, because I was scared. There was a policeman behind me. I said, "What if I turn and it's not the right way to turn?"
San Marcos would be a hard place to learn to drive with a standard with all these hills.
And that's what I learned to drive on, the standard.
They didn't have formal driver's education at the school, I guess.
I guess not. Somebody taught me.
Things were just a lot simpler. You didn't have all the...
That is right. Everything was a lot more simpler.
It seems complicated nowadays.
Everything is complicated nowadays. Even my phone. I had a phone. I had just a regular phone just to get calls and call out. And one of my daughter-in-law says, "No, you need to have everything in the phone, internet. You need an iPhone." And I said,
This is a girl that didn't get a phone until she was 22 and married. Now you have a smartphone. That is quite the change in your lifetime, hadn't it been?
"Do I need to all of that?" I told my son, "How many times do you call me? And you want me to have a phone? I need a call from you twice a day. That way I can make use of my phone."
Now they want to text you.
Yes. Well, I learned. I remember my sons went to Las Vegas one time, and I stayed with the grandkids. And of course, they were teenagers, and they had a phone, and so they let me use their phone. They text me, and they say, "Oh, mom's texting you," and so I text back and said, "Who's texting? Is it you or is it Richard?" It's me. I learned.
The grandkids
The
taught
grandkids
you.
taught me. Yes.
They'll probably continue to teach you a lot of stuff over the next years.
Yes.
Well, it sounds like you've had a blessed life here in San Marcos,
I
Bonnie.
have, thanks to my mother and teaching me values. And like I said, I believe so much in helping others. And somewhere along the line, somebody will help your loved ones.
Your mother sounds really neat.
She was.
Yeah.
She really was.
Quite a woman for her time.
Yes.
There wasn't much she couldn't do, it doesn't sound like.
No, because she taught me how to work, not to be afraid to work, always help people, and do whatever you can to better somebody else's life. And I think, and I like to do that. It's in me, it's my passion to help whoever needs it. Whether it's children, because I preach to the kids, I say, when there's something going on, and I have 5 students in the presentation, like gang awareness presentation. I have 5 teenagers. There's 12 at the park across the street. So I'll walk across the street and I tell them, hey, I'm having, and I would really like for you to come. Miss, I've already heard that. They tell us that in school. I said, wait a minute. Did I say you haven't heard it? They tell you at school? No, I said, can you come in and listen to this? I said, do it for me. Come on in. And after 5 minutes you don't like it, you walk out. The door will be open. And guess what? They come in and they stay. And I remember the presenter. He was from the sheriff's department. He asked the kids one time, he said, you guys, you think that you want to be in a gang and you're bangers, and let me take you to LA and let you out in the streets where the real gangs are. And another thing, why do you think this lady stays around working with you all when you're so disrespectful? And one of the boys that really was very disrespectful, he raised his hand and he said, because she cares. And I'm like, oh my God. That, things
Wow.
like that. Little things here and there makes my work more enjoyable. Yeah.